Now, even after the M23 rebels were defeated and driven out of Eastern Congo, several stakeholders involved in efforts to pacify the country believed a peaceful solution to the crisis between victor and vanquished was still vital. But the Kampala talks, which have in the past experienced challenges, have yet again hit a snag after a delegation from the Congolese government disagreed with the wording of the peace document. Rather than an agreement, Kinshasa wants to pen its signature to a declaration of the M23 renouncing rebellion. M23 officials are adamant, saying a peace agreement sounds just fine. It does not help matters that Congo is growing increasingly uncomfortable having Uganda as mediator of these talks. On Newsnight this evening, the M23 defeat, the stalled talks, and what happens next. And as always, our resident guest on Newsnight, MWENDA. Welcome.
The old man of the clan.
So you say. Well,
Hi,
Andrew,
Gabriel.
how did the M23 so quickly fall? And yet just barely a year ago, they were taking one territory after another. There have been some answers. Some people were talking about international pressure. And also there was talk from M23 officials that their calls to Rwanda were not being picked. And of course, calls for assistance.
First of all, there has been all this story that Rwanda supports M23. I should tell you, there is no material support from the Rwanda government to M23. If the Rwanda government moved one gun and 2 soldiers across the border to support M23, American satellites in space would get the pictures and they would show them to Rwanda. There would be already evidence.
When they've learned how to clean their tracks.
No, it's very difficult to hide away from those satellites. But what was happening is that actually M23 was defeated because they adopted the wrong military strategy. In military strategy, you always have to have a response to the enemy in reaction to the kind of capabilities that they have. The Congolese army is indisciplined, it's poorly trained, it's well equipped but poorly trained, poorly disciplined, it cannot fight. So M23 could put up a pitched by M23 is largely a light infantry force. They are only carrying Kalashnikovs. The Congolese army has tanks, armored personnel carriers, and artillery. But because they are indisciplined and incoherent, they are incapable of putting up a pitched fight. That's why M23 was beating them now. When the South Africans came with armored personnel carriers and artillery and tanks on the ground, supported by armor-plated helicopters of the United Nations, the odds were stacked against M23. Naturally, if M23 were smart military strategists, they should, realizing that the capability of the opposing army was very high, and now you had forces of South Africa and Tanzania who are disciplined and can end the pitched fight. M23 should have retreated to the forests and mountains, where A, the forests make it difficult for the helicopter to get its target, 2, the mountains make, and the forests also make it difficult for mechanized vehicles to drive through and reach the enemy camp and attack you. Then if they had gone into what we call asymmetric warfare and gone to fight a guerrilla war, it would have been difficult for the South Africans to beat them. And now let me tell you this, that's what is likely to happen. M23 has been defeated in battle. They have not been defeated in war. It's very possible that M23 are going to reorganize, go into the forests of Congo and launch a second rebellion.
And we've just seen Batkan Bisim where they're saying they're not interested in fighting anymore.
You see, the factors that simulate and stimulate conflict in Congo are still present. So Basima is one person, he can say he's no longer interested in war. But I can tell you, for every one Congolese who is not interested in fighting, I would imagine there are 1,000 Congolese who are willing to enter the fight. Why is war more attractive in Congo than peace? One, you have the state in Congo that is very weak. It has an army that is repressive, rapacious. Whenever it relates to the population, it is either raping them, looting them, or terrorizing them. All those factors create grievances for rebellion. But at the same time, the physical conditions of Congo, you have thick forests, you have a mountainous terrain, and then you have rich minerals. The forests provide sanctuary, the mountainous terrain makes it difficult for the army to reach the rebels, and 3, the minerals provide money to support rebellion. Those factors still exist in Congo, and they therefore still stimulate rebellion. There is going to be much more rebellion in Congo as we go forward.
Well, the Congolese delegation that was holding talks last night with, actually most of the day, into the night with M23 officials, said they prefer to sign a document that has the M23 declaring renouncement of rebellion. M23 says the document as it was okay by them. What does this spell for the conflict in Eastern Congo?
I personally think right now the intervention of international forces may have given the Congolese government a reprieve, and this kind of belligerent language by the government in Kinshasa is a product of the fact that it has international benefactors who are willing to fight its wars. And I think the existence of these international benefactors, South Africa and Tanzania, are liberating the Congolese government from the necessary military and political bargains with M23 that can secure a lasting peace for that country. Why? You see, right now, you have an artificial winner and the artificial victor in the form of Congolese government and an artificial loser. The winner knows that he won because of external support. Precisely because of that, Kabila is unlikely to seek internal, social and political integration and accommodation. Why? Because for every weakness he's confronting, he can leverage his international benefactors to solve a domestic problem. The M23 clearly know that they lost not because of their inherent weaknesses, but because of the intervention of external forces. So they are likely to wait it out until the external forces leave.
And then they move back in.
Then they move back in. Even before the international community leaves, the M23 most likely will begin a guerrilla war, which will be a long and protracted war. Let me tell you something, Gabriel.
Yes,
I was about to call you my grandson. People are saying I should not call people my grandchildren, even though I'm so advanced in age.
Let's stick to Gabriel.
The United States has been involved in Afghanistan for the last 12 years. Since Museveni came to power, he has received foreign aid, including debt relief, of up to around $23 billion. 23 billion. And I would imagine that the total revenue of the government of Uganda over the last 27 years has been about 20 billion. That makes it 43 billion. In 27 years, Gabriel, you cannot begin a rebellion in any part of Uganda and UPDF does not smoke you out. Uganda, compared to Afghanistan, has a formidable state. In Afghanistan, the United States alone, not to count its NATO allies, spends $100 billion per year. Can I repeat it for you that? 100 billion. That is 20 times the budget of Uganda in a whole year. The US government and the Karzai government control only Kabul. Karzai is like the mayor of Kabul, not the president of the entire country.
But the dynamics rather of each country is different.
Whatever dynamics are different, let me tell you, if you study civil wars across the world over the last 55 years, you'll discover that the terrain of Congo and the terrain of Afghanistan, caves, mountains, forests, are similar. In other words, the conditions that make it difficult for you to defeat an insurgency in Afghanistan also make it difficult for you to defeat an insurgency in Congo. The Tanzanians do not have the will, do not have the resources, do not have the discipline to enter Congo for a very long time. An open-ended commitment to fighting Kabila's wars. So this is a temporary reprieve for Congo. I can tell you that next year we will be back to square one. Because you see, to resolve the problems of a country, you need an internal solution. The internal solution is that you will have a military conflict. In a military conflict, either one side will secure a decisive military victory and therefore proceed to mount relatively unified action to consolidate political power and establish a durable peace. Okay. Or for that matter, you will have the two sides get exhausted by mutual combat and find accommodation of one another, political accommodation, a much more promising alternative to fighting at the battlefield. Okay. Those options now have been defeated by the presence of external factors. But this external factor is not going to help.
It's not lasting. Yes. We will wait and see how long the external factors play out in Congo. But let's go to the mediation. The Congolese foreign minister has questioned the neutrality of Uganda as a peace broker in these talks. And he alludes to Kampala being favorable in its drafting, maybe together with other stakeholders, of the peace agreement. What's your take on this?
I think that the drafting of the peace agreement was done before M23 was defeated. So, and Congo, if last year this peace agreement had come on the table, perhaps Congo would have accepted it. Right now, Congo is thumping its chest because it has someone else fighting its wars. You get that FADC army, which lost Goma in 2 seconds, and leave them to be the ones fighting their own wars. You will find that their ability to talk to M23 will change. First of all, I should tell you this, if you do not know. Sultan Makenga, the commander of M23, and President Joseph Kabila have a direct telephone contact. They talk almost every week. This Ntaganda, who ran to the American embassy in Kigali and then was taken to The Hague, him and Kabila used to have daily conversations or weekly conversations. Remember that Kabila is Congolese, Makenga is Congolese. They talk. It is simple that the entry into this fight of external players, especially those who are not affected. You see, if you ask me about Uganda and Rwanda, honestly, I think that Uganda and Rwanda have a strong stake. If you are Rwanda, you have former genocidal forces right across the border, ready to attack you. You have an existential threat from Congo. So you have a self-interest in engaging yourself in Congo. People. That's why in 2009, Kagame and Kabila signed an agreement whereby they agreed to have joint operations against FDLR, and then the Rwanda government was able to leverage its influence over CNDP, now M23, and they were integrated to the Congolese army, and I think that was the best solution for Congo. If you want to resolve the problems of Congo, you have to get those neighbors of Congo who are adversely affected by the state of statelessness inside the DRC,
like Uganda and
Rwanda,
yes,
to be partners with Kabila. Museveni, Kabila, and Kagame need to interface and talk and resolve this issue among themselves. If you add third parties away from these other three actors, you add
have no end to the conflict.
You will have a conundrum of problems. People will talk, debate, discuss, and they'll never get anything done.
Well, thank you so much, Andrew MWENDA, for your insight there on the situation in Congo, and we do hope that indeed a solution will be found as soon as possible. Well, that was Newsnight.